Good evening. Welcome to C&T Collectibles. This is This Week in Baseball Cards, where we take a technical look at baseball card price action and a few other cards as well. So fundamentals will tell you what is supposed to be happening, but the price action will tell you what is happening. This is not advice. This is just what I'm seeing, what I'm looking at. Disclaimer, 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 yada, yada, yada. And as always, we start off with Mike Trout. And we've got the long-term picture here. And it's respected this upper and lower boundary pretty well over the past decade or so. A couple times it's hit this upper trend line, and what has happened is it's come off each time. When it goes sideways and hits that bottom trend line, then you have kind of this pattern here. And when it comes out, then you've got this area that resistance becomes support, and it comes up and you test that again. So up here you had the test, but you didn't come all the way back to the bottom, but this time you did. And what we're looking for here is when it kind of had the spike up, said, that's too much, look for it to come back to some level. And I'm thinking it comes back to this level, and we're getting really close there. So if we zoom in, we can see a few retracement options here, but you had very little buying in this area here, and these purchases were easily overwhelmed with more selling. And so when you have more supply than demand, then the prices go down. And so these prices have been traveling down in a fairly consistent fashion, and what we are seeing now is the prices start to compress, and so the selling is getting picked up quicker and quicker. And so this is your longer term area where it's where I think it comes back to. So we'll see if it gets to this area and catches a bounce. So basically you've got this downtrend line, and once it busts above that, then that's more of an all clear. But right now, as these prices compress, that's a pretty decent sign of a pending reversal. So patience, it's still traveling downwards, but once it comes above that, that's when you want to buy. So if you're looking for this card, I think you want to start getting your funds together. You might have a shot in the very near future, maybe a little bit more downside, but then I think you start to see prices start to rise again soon. So PSA 10 is going to run you $4,900. PSA 9 is around $2,000. So that implies a $6,000 PSA 10 price. So either the PSA 9 people are thinking that this price compresses and goes back up to this area, which I think that is probably the case as well, or the PSA 9 is overvalued because it's held in pretty well during this, and will come down as well. So we'll keep track and see what happens here, but the PSA 10 is a better relative value at this moment in time. All right, moving on to Luis Robert. We've got this sideways pattern here, and we covered him last week, and I screwed up the levels on it. I thought it was like 91.20 or something like that. It's actually 155 at the high and $100 at the low, and so you're coming back up to this high again. So there's more buying picking up here, and so we've seen this before, and so until it breaks out, it doesn't, the prices aren't going to go any higher. But once it starts to go out and hold this, then you could start to see roughly, $200 or something like this on this card. But as it stands, top of the range is when you sell, and the bottom range is when you buy. So 155 you sell, and right now you're at 147, and 100 on the bottom is when you buy. So until that changes, here's your reward, very little reward and a lot of risk. So if you're trying to play this or you're trying to buy it, then this was your area to do it. But you might get another shot here. We'll see what happens. But the more you kind of pump up against this, the greater the likelihood of it breaking out. So we'll see what happens. If he has a good spring training, then it goes out. If he doesn't do much, then you come back down to here. So as it stands right now, you're at the top of the range for Luis Robert. PSA 10, $147. So $50 would be his PSA 9 right now. So if you're able to get it for less than that, that'd be a good relative value. I'm not sure what those go for. Good job, Chad. Way to research this, but that's where we're at. All right, Mookie Betts' longer term trend is still in place. Now, you had this breakout and then move upwards, and so it exceeded these previous highs, which is a good thing. And you're getting a lot of buying in this area here. So it's staying above this area. So as long as it stays above this area, which is, what was that, $800 or something like that, you're in good shape. It made its way to 1,000. It's coming back to $900. So it gave back about 10% or something like that. But as long as it's above this line, then you've got a lot of upside. And Mookie Betts is widely considered to be at a minimum the second best player in the game right now. So there's upside to this card. So Mike Trout level, I don't know, because Mookie has a number of different variations. Mike Trout didn't really have that. But still, I think this card has more upside as long as it hangs out above this area here. So Mookie Betts, $910 for the PSA 10, $290 for the PSA 9. So the 9 is slightly undervalued, but either way, that's just kind of hanging out, going sideways. So Moving on to Eloy Jimenez. So a lot of sideways action here. Top of the range, bottom of the range, top of the range, coming off again, starting to compress, and it broke down. And so what you're seeing here is, at least in the intermediate term, long-term sideways, intermediate term, trending upwards pretty nicely here. So you've got this downtrend line that is kind of competing with, and we'll see if it can bust above that and make its way to highs. And again, the sellers are coming in quicker and quicker, so it is able to get here. Then we look for a breakout, and if he does what I think he's going to do, which is 285 hitter with 40 home runs, that's a beast. And his price is cheap. And so when I look at Luis Robert for $150 and Eloy Jimenez for $71, Eloy all day, especially right now. So that's kind of what I'm looking at between those two. So we'll see how it plays out here. But Eloy is a pretty decent buy, and it's a player that I've been doing a few things with lately that I'll be excited to show you in a future mail day. Eloy is $71 for the 10 and a 9. Look for $20-25 if you want to go that route. But honestly, I think at a $71 for a PSA 10 for this guy is a pretty good price. So Ronald Acuna, he's got his downtrend intact still. $250 was this area, and it matched that. And we were looking, when it got down here, we said, we'll look for it to get to these highs sometime during the season, and everything's just been pulled ahead a few months here. So it is traveling neatly up in this area here, and it hit the 250 mark in conjunction with that downtrend line. So it did everything that's supposed to do. So top of the range. Now it's coming off just a little bit here. So I don't know if it needs to come all the way back down to this. If it does, then it might coincide with this bottom here. But I think this is kind of your floor right now, and that's what, $180 or something like that. So right now, Ronald Acuna, there's more risk than reward, but this guy is one of the top players in the game this year. If he puts it all together, and he's been putting it all together, he really has had terrific seasons. Even if last year was a little bit weird, he had an injury he was dealing with. But if he turns out to be one of the top 3 players in the game this year, which is absolutely possible, then this card should break out and rocket. So until it breaks out of this one, then it's still a downtrend, but look for some upwards movement. So PSA 10, $212, PSA 9, $65. So I think there's a little bit more downside perhaps to the PSA 10 if it gets down to that $190, $200 range. Then that $65 PSA 9 is a fair price. So, we're back in here when it was $40. We said, just buy all you can. Up here, it's like, okay, I think there's equal relative value between the 9 and the 10. Not really a huge advantage to either, although I'm looking for higher prices in this card down the road, and then the 9 should catch up. I mean, you're going to get percentage return. In percentage terms, you'll probably get similar returns from the 9 and the 10. There's just not a discrepancy in that area anymore. All right. His 2018 update, brother, Juan Soto. So the uptrend is clearly intact here. And he hit the top of the range and came back to the bottom. Then he made his way back up to this previous high and went above it. So, in this area, there was some chop when it got to this area. Said, this is where some selling might take place. And you got some of that, not a whole lot. But it broke up again, and it's made its way. What was this, $385 or something like that? The high price is somewhere in here. Yeah, $380. And so it's hanging around here. Last sales $330. So it's come off a decent amount, but as long as it respects this previous high here, then I think you're okay. And then once he starts doing something amazing during the season, then this price has room to go up. So the longer it goes sideways, the more you're just going to reduce the downside, if this trend channel continues to hold and increase your upside. So the longer it just kind of does this, then the stronger of a buy it becomes. So right now, $330 for the PSA 10, $110 for the PSA 9. So that 3-to-1 relationship is intact. So we'll just keep monitoring it. But when it gets back down to the $300 area, that's a decent spot for the time being for now to buy Juan Soto if you haven't already done something. All right. And okay, I did have a closer look at that one. Here's your longer term trend channel. You can see that it's traveling neatly from that bottom up. So top of the range a couple times, bottom of the range. Now you're near the bottom of the range. So at least in the intermediate to shorter term, this is a pretty decent spot to buy. This purchase here, this price has dropped. So if it drops below this, then you're coming back down into this area here. But for now, if this is to be respected, then Juan Soto, pretty strong buy, at least in the shorter term. Fernando Tatis got a big bump here, but he didn't sign a contract last week, so he's coming off just a little bit here. He might have to actually play some baseball to push those prices up. Couldn't hold on to that breakout. Now he's coming back into the zone here. So Fernando Tatis, $272 for a PSA 10, $115 for a PSA 9. So the 9 is slightly undervalued, but I think that this card has a little bit more to come back into. So print runs from 2019, 2018 update to 2019. So if you're trying to compare them to the Soto and Acuna and stuff like that, quite a few more of these out there. There's probably PSA population numbers that we could look at and all that, but I didn't do that. Maybe if someone wants to throw that at me, that would be fine as well. But it's easy enough to find, but I just didn't on this one. So anyways, couldn't hold the breakout. And this is what happens when you can't hold these breakouts and you quickly move back into your previous range here. And so there's enough buying in here to support it. So I don't think there's a ton of downside, but there's maybe just a little bit more for Fernando Tatis. All right, let's get into some extra innings here. Oh, all right. I did short term on him as well. So shorter term, here's your top of the range here. So here's your previous high, broke out. Then you have your top of your range, and coincides with this channel as well. So it's moving down to the bottom end of the range. So again, that's where I'm coming up with. There's perhaps a little bit of downside. Top of when you hit the previous high, compressed and broke out. And so the top of the range here, it is coming down just a little bit, and we'll see if it can catch a bounce here. But I think we're getting close on Tatis, and if that's the card you're wanting, then probably start pulling the trigger now-ish. All right, Barry Bonds. I don't know why I picked this card here. I was just looking at some of the bigger movers to throw some cards in here, and I saw this one. It's like, oh, geez, all right. Longer term trend is up, but you're at the top of the range. You just see previously, the card has come off fairly decently each time it has gotten to this level here, especially on these low volume spikes where a couple of people want to sell $1,000 for a 1987 base card, not even a Tiffany or anything like that. I think it's pretty amazing. So you could have some people stepping in to sell their Barry Bonds here. A lot more purchases in here than here. So this is a pretty big move. So they didn't immediately collapse by any stretch, but they did come back down and then make their way to the bottom of the channel. So you could give up a decent amount here, but it's still traveling upwards. But this is a decent time if you've got a stash of PSA 10 Barry Bonds to perhaps start taking some profits. Seems like a logical area to do that. So Wander Franco, number one prospect, sideways action here, breakout, and now you're getting into very, very quick move. Not a whole lot of these. This is the Mojo, the Mega Box refractor. So big breakout here, and now you've got this sideways action. So top of the range, bottom of this little range here, back to the top. And now you're coming to the midpoint here. And so not much to do with this card. I think it's an expensive card for someone who hasn't done anything yet, but he's an elite level prospect, and we'll kind of see what happens. But for now, maybe it's just fun to watch more than anything, or find a raw or something like that. But not a lot of people interested up in these areas. A lot of buying in here, and not so much up here. But play your levels with a little bit upside maybe, and then it's just going to kind of ping pong around. So we'll see what happens. If he gets in the news or something like that, it could really spike. But who knows how that happens. All right, a couple Pokemon here, just to show how these bubbles work here. Not a lot of buying here. They got quickly overwhelmed and came back to that previous level, and when they came back down here, said probably decent spot to buy if this is what you're looking for. And it got up to that. You had a quick spike to this level, and they came back down here, and then it gradually started to trend up, and that's what you're looking for. You don't want these quick spikes. You want a lot of buying to support this. And top of the range now it's coming off again, so you're middle of the range here, but you could see something back down into this area, and just play that range for the time being. And that is Charizard. Now we have Blastus, and that's again big move up, and then the move down. And now you're in that sideways range. It's trending upwards, but again, it's hitting the top of the range and coming back down. So you can see this. You can pick out a bunch of different Pokemon cards and kind of see the same thing. All right, Michael Jordan, 1986. We're going to revisit our old friend here. So said right in here, is this did the bubble just pop? And so that was about $23,000, and your current price is what $16,000, and it got even lower, so right around the $13,000 level here. So prices are starting to deceleration. You're starting to decelerate, so you're not seeing these massive the massive drops down. You're starting to see slower and slower drops down. So I think it still maybe makes its way in here, but we'll see how this kind of turns out. Snuck below this area. Usually, I said, when you have these ranges, they'll kind of break in the favor of the previous trend, which is down. And so you got that. Now it's coming back up to here. So we'll see if you can bust out of this this downward pattern and make your way back up here. But otherwise, the trend is still down on this one, and you're probably getting closer to an area to buy that particular card if that's what you're looking for. Tiger Woods, what did he do recently, right? Big spike here, said, what, don't touch it. Look for a drop to the previous reference point here, and it tagged it perfectly. And so then you're starting to get the buying again here and setting up a range. And then he rolled his car, and he had a new all-time high. One person, and quickly someone wisely listed their car when that accident happened, and at a big price. And someone, it looks like it was probably an auction. but let's see, what was the last sale? High price, average price, high price, 170. Yeah, so that's probably an auction price here, but again, but that was quickly rejected, and so there was a purchase there, and then the next one was rated at this level here. So we'll see what happens if there's a number of buying in here. Otherwise, probably come back down into this range. But again, this was your previous reference point, and that was your purchase. So now just watch it and have fun. All right, let's look for some value here, and that's the first guy I can think of is a 24-year-old. That's probably the best second baseman in the game. So Ozzie Albies, and he's trending up nicely. And he's at the bottom of the range here, and probably too cheap. $50 for a PSA 10. I think this is the Chrome, but $50. To get get a guy that's in the top 1 or 2 at his position right now for $50. I think that's an absolute steal. And I'm looking at his cards heavily while everybody else is running. We got to look elsewhere, and I think that's an interesting option. Alex Bryan talked about him a lot in here, and he's just been ripping, and so this is probably too much here, and so now I think you got to wait. But if he comes back into this area again, top 5 player in the game potentially, if you can get that for $80, do it. But right now, just kind of watch that one a little bit. But again, that's just a card that I think was undervalued for so long, and now it's starting to catch up just a little bit. But patience if you haven't done anything yet. But of course, watchers of our channel have done something. Jose Ramirez, here's a guy that's been an MVP candidate 3 of the last 4 years. One of the best offensive players at his position, and third base is pretty deep, but he's right up there with him. You had this long consolidation and a breakout, and then just kind of trended upwards, and now you're starting to roll over just a little bit. So you've got this target area, and if you can get this guy for $50 or $60 as rookie card in a PSA 10, I think you gotta do it. So look hard at Jose Ramirez, and we'll wind it up with Albert Poohl, whose wife I think retired for him this week. So this long-term, kind of nothing, and then a breakout, and then again pretty steady buying here, on the top side of that trend, and retest a few times, and then all of a sudden boom. And so you don't have to come back to these levels. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. But he did kind of break out here, on low volume, and then you got a lot of buying in here, and then break out again. So look for him to come back into this area if you're looking for that card. I think ultimately, when he loses relevance, he'll have Hall of Fame. There'll always be demand for it, but it could, it could come back down into this level. But for now, let that one go. But if it gets into this area here, so whatever that is, I can't even tell what that is, $3,000 or something like that. Then that's probably your last chance for that particular card for a little while, at least if that's what you're looking for. So all right, hope that helps. I got your homework in for you, so pencils down, beers up, and have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks.